Recently, I've been invited by a teacher who was in charge of the awards night video thing, I'm not exactly sure, to make the awards night video that's gonna be shown to everyone during the event. And I accepted it. Now we had a few rehearsals before the actual awards night event, and during the second rehearsal, they actually on my video and played in front of everyone. And after the rehearsal, a lot of my friends and some teachers told me that the video was awesome, and even better, my class teacher told me that all of the MRC teachers were blown away, and some of my friends even told me how I did it. So, because of all that, I considered on making a video on how I actually edit my videos, and I saw that coming because I expected that people would ask how I actually made the video, which is why I shot a lot of behind the scenes footage. So in this video, you guys read the title, I'll be teaching you guys how I make my edits. So let's get started by going all the way back about 1 month ago. So these are the contents that the awards night video should have. The stuff that we did in school and all of the other events. I was given with all these photos that our teachers had taken throughout the whole of 2019, and they're all just pretty mediocre. And if you do not know about this channel, I don't do mediocre stuff. When I make videos, I want to make it as good as the videos that I produce on this channel, which means I'm gonna have to think of everything I know to make those mediocre photos look good. And recently I've been learning a lot about After Effects and how it works and what it can do, and you guys kind of already know that if you follow me on Instagram. I posted a video of me testing 3D tracking on After Effects, and it went okay. Like there's some glitching blocks in that thing, but the beginning part, like the text and the beginning blocks, really started out really well. And this 3D tracking thing can work for anything: photos, shapes, video, text as well. So since the video was basically gonna be a recap of what we did in school throughout the whole of 2019, I decided to give it more of a memorial feeling to it. So yeah, between these times, I learned how to make 3D tracking stuff, and I had the media of everything we did in school, and I decided to combine both of them and make a good piece. So now I've done all my planning, I can finally start the shooting, and I started literally at the day after the exam finished. So I brought my camera, my gimbal, and a faulty phone that was lying around in my drawer. It's the Huawei P9, by the way. It's a phone that I've already mentioned in the EA video outro. If you have not heard about it yet, it's basically my old phone that I broke, but just the touch sensitivity part is broken. The rest is completely fine. So I use a Type-C, which is the port of the phone, to a USB adapter, so I can insert the cable and attach some other device to probably make it function, and it works successfully. So these shots that you're looking at right here is shot by my friend Caleb, the Caleb that you guys saw in my video. He has no idea how to operate a DSLR, and this camera right here has no autofocus whatsoever. He needs to adjust focus manually and all those stuff, so please, it's at least watchable content. So my plan here right now is like starting off as a visitor, visiting this school and seeing what's going on. And yeah, I start off by pulling my camera up, looking at the Metrotabernacle entrance sign, and start walking towards the school. And as he did that, there's words lying around, and yeah, it's basically fake. It's supposed to be fake even in the video. What I mean by fake, because obviously those texts were not actually there in real life, but those texts were also not supposed to be there in the video. So it's basically like him dreaming that the texts were there or something. And as he got closer and closer to the school, the dream becomes more and more intense, and he actually goes into this crazy flashback realm with all sorts of effects and glowings. My English ain't good enough to describe all that, alright? So yeah, here's a couple shots of me recording the place. It's at least watchable content. As I got to the end of the glass door, I basically just stopped there and I'll just trim it in post-production. Now before I teach you guys how to edit this, I have to mention that Adobe After Effects are one of the hardest softwares to ever operate. So please, if you're actually gonna edit this yourself, you'll be totally lost because I'm not gonna get in so detailed in this tutorial. So yeah, using my new beefy gaming computer that we have just gotten like a few weeks ago, which I made a video of us getting the PC, but it failed due to some stupid Premiere Pro reasons. Overriding a project literally just overwrites both projects into an empty file, which is stupid. You lose both of the projects if you overwrite on another file. So yeah, due to that stupid reason, I couldn't post that video. That video's lost forever. But hey, this is life. You gotta go through all these. At least I have a new gaming computer that's powerful enough to use After Effects, or else if I'm using that stupid ass laptop, it will never get things running. I can't even screen record at 720p without it overloading. So yeah, first off, open After Effects, grab your project, drop it into this box. I don't know what it's actually called. Your video will pop out in a timeline like this. Drag it down and plop it onto that icon there. By doing that, you're creating a new composition, and essentially what that means in After Effects is creating a new layer. I know, it's really complicated. Why didn't they just name it layer? Now after you've added your new composition, you'll see your video in your timeline. The first thing I want to do, you can see the video is actually pretty shaky even when shot on a gimbal. That's because I was using my Huawei P9 to record that, and that phone doesn't have any form of stabilization at all. So when you record a video, every single jitter will be captured. Luckily, we have a solution. To fix this, go to your effects and presets, type warp stabilizer, and drop that into your clip. Now, a blue bar will appear in the middle of your video, right in whatever it's actually doing. And first things first, I just want to change the smoothness down to like 1 or 2% because I just want to remove little tiny jitters. For the most part, the result smooth motion method subspersed warp is basically the best method, and you basically do not need to change anything, just leave it as it is. Once you're done, you basically just have to wait for it to analyze. You can see the time remaining, or so far the amount of frames that is currently analyzing. Once it's done, the blue bar will turn into an orange bar and it'll write stabilizing. When that is also complete, it'll just write nothing, and you'll see your video get slightly cropped in, which are one of the downsides of warp stabilization. If you're gonna apply any sort of software stabilization, it's gonna crop in the edges a tiny bit to compensate for the shake. This is how software stabilization works. And now you can see that all of our movements still retain, but the shake had been completely destroyed. I mean disappeared. What kind of vocabulary am I using right now? So it looks much better. You can see it's so much smoother. Once your stabilization is done, go ahead and right click on your video and find pre-compose. I'll name this comp 1 and move all attributes to the new composition. If you leave all the attributes in the original, you'll basically lose your warp stabilizer things. I'll show you in a minute. You'll see your whatever you named video turn into the whatever you named composition. And when you right click on that, you'll see your whatever you named video. And if you click that again, you'll see the effect that you've applied on that video, which means you can go ahead and remove whatever effects that you do not want, which is really convenient. And the reason why I'm pre-composing it is because I want to track the camera. Just go ahead and select your video and press track camera button. This is the magic button that allows you to add whatever 3D elements you want in your video. Just click on that, it'll start popping that blue bar again, analyzing background, and yeah, you basically do not need to change anything. Just wait till it finishes and you'll see a bunch of dots in your video. Those are tracking points which After Effects detected, and basically the more tracking points you have in your video, the better your 3D tracking will work. So you can see all these tracking points. After Effects had done a really good job. All these tracking points will be really important later on. Now at the beginning, I had this part where the 3D tracking failed. That's usually because there's not enough info of the environment and After Effects can't really analyze it. But that's extremely minor because since we're not adding any elements over there. The 3D tracker also failed at this part, at the rooftop, which was actually where I wanted to add one of my texts over there. And because I know sometimes 3D tracking wouldn't really work, I decided to shoot this part here too. And so the tracking basically continued until I reached the glass door. And I thought the reflections and stuff was actually gonna affect it, but it did a pretty good job. Once you're done looking at your satisfying tracked out video, you can go ahead and press the create camera button right here. Now this is actually a screen recording after I've done a bit of editing, so I forgot to actually screen record my editing progress. So you can press the create camera button and it will create a camera. It's always called 3D tracker camera. Now from this point onward, I'm not going to go into too detail because this video would take forever to edit and forever for you guys to watch. So I'm just going to say I add a 3D text and press the cube icon over there to enable 3D, and at first the text isn't 3D, so go down to geometry options, extrusion depth, and just adjust that thing. The higher the number, the longer your text would be. For now I'll just set it at 30, that's the optimal one. But even setting your extrusion depth, your text still look pretty fake. It does not have the dark and light sides, like how a real text would look like in real life, which is why you need to add a light. Then I added a few ambient lights to match the edges of the words because they look too contrasted. I want the edges to have a bit of lighting too. After all that is done, you can see your text looks pretty realistic and looks like it's actually there in real life. Same goes for the awards night 2019. I typed the text, increased the extrusion depth, and added a few lights to make it look more realistic. Once you're done with your text, you can see that it's peeking through the wall of the entrance sign. So to fix that, you're gonna need a mask. Let me just skim through this for you and it will make sense. Basically, I've copied the original layer and put it on top of all of the text, and I started masking it. I used the pen tool, zoomed in and see if it matches the wall, and I have to do this frame by frame, which means it's gonna take a lot of time. So here's a sped up video for you. As you can see, it was extremely time consuming. It took me about 30 minutes to completely hide the text, but when it's done, the result looks awesome. Do the same for every other text and you get there, hopefully. Yeah, eventually we end up here.
Get a better angle, man.
Now there are still a lot of things that's missing from this, like the music and color grading and the effects that make this thing look memorial. And if you're wondering why my shirt has changed, that's because it's been 3 days later, so let's get back to this. Now this time I'll be using Adobe Premiere Pro because I have more control over the audio, and also it's a lot more easy to use compared to After Effects. So yeah, once it's open, press New Project and just name it whatever you want. For me, I'm gonna name it Awards Night, and you know, people make mistakes. So obviously the first thing to do is go to your file, find your video and drop it down into that timeline where it says drop media here to create a new sequence. Immediately, I'm just gonna want to take my music and just drop it into the timeline too. As easy as that. Now this part right here is really important. I use the Huawei P9 to record, which records in 30 FPS, and I've also edited this video in 30 FPS in After Effects. But what you don't know is that my flashback video is actually in 25 FPS. And the reason why I'm doing that is because all of my older shot videos were all shot in 25 FPS, like the sports day video and the EA Camp video. And you might be asking, why didn't I make it to 30 FPS? And that's because I did not know how to do so. I had to change my camera recording settings from PAL to NTSC, which is 25 or 50 FPS, to 30 and 60 FPS. And there's a lot of confusions between frame rates, and that would lead to some serious non-synced videos. If you put a 30 FPS video into a 25 FPS timeline, it would not look good at all. All you have to do to fix it is click on your video timeline. If it's from 30 FPS to 25 FPS, change it to 83.333 and so on %. Now that would slow the video down, but that would look much better if you didn't do that. Same goes vice versa. If you put a 25 FPS video into a 30 FPS timeline, it would also not look good. And here's an example of that. Compare that to this. So yeah, I press OK. Also, every time you plop a video into a new timeline in Premiere Pro, they will save the sequence settings according to your video settings. So now we gotta change that. Go to sequence settings, and right now we gotta change it to 25. Now this was really stupid of me. I've changed it and pressed OK, and see this. What I wanted is the time code and not the amount of frames the video has. So I decided to remove the entire video and plop in a 1080p 25 FPS video because I thought that would fix the problem. But all you have to do is go to the frames, press it, and they'll automatically give you a whatever frame rate you chose time code. You don't need to be as stupid as me and deleting the whole thing. That would waste some time. Alright, moving on. I want the video to fade from black like this. So to do that, if you have nothing in your timeline, it will be basically rendered as black. So all you have to do to fade it from black is just go to the opacity settings, bring the opacity to 0, and click that little stopwatch icon right there. That would create a keyframe right there. Bring your playhead slightly further from the beginning of the video and bring the opacity to 100%, and that would automatically create a keyframe for you. You can move your keyframes around to find where and how fast you want the fade to start. Now I want to try to sync the video according to the music. So you can see it's pretty slow over here. It's just a bit too slow at this part of the video. and I want it to go a bit faster. So to do that, I'm gonna have to speed the video up, but I want it to speed up slowly, not like an instant boom. That's where speed ramping comes in. And I can adjust the speed for the ramp to be really quick, but in this case, I'm gonna have to make it really slow because I don't want it to be so obvious. I just want to make it feel like the person's walking to the school faster. To start speed ramping, just adjust your timeline and expand it like this, because you're gonna need some room to do the speed ramping. And bring a cursor to this yellow effect square. Right click on it and there's time revamping and press speed. Now your video timeline looks slightly different. What you can do now is go to the pen tool or press P, click on that blue line and you'll create a keyframe. And that's a double keyframe, you'll see what I mean later. Now the keyframe separates the speed of the back and front part of the video, so I want this part of the video to start to speed up. So what you can do is go back to your selection tool, right at the blue line, click and hold and drag up if you want to speed the video, or drag it down to slow the video down. For us, we're gonna speed it up. Now you can see that the video in your timeline has become shorter. That's because you sped the video up, so the duration is shorter. And now at the keyframe, you see there is one dotted line that separates two keyframes. So just click any of the keyframes and drag it apart from each other. The first keyframe is where the speed is gonna start going up, and the second keyframe is where the speed is gonna stop. The closer the keyframes are from each other, the faster the speed ramp is. For me, I want to drag it like a few seconds apart because I want to have a gradual increase of speed. So I'm gonna keep adjusting the speed ramp until it syncs with the music. Now time for the color grading. As I explained earlier, as the person approaches the school, he becomes more dreamy, and when you're in a dreamy world, everything just looks blue and lightning. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna color, and as soon as you tweak any of these settings here, the Luma tree is just going to pop in your effects controls. Just look at this, a little boop, and you can see it just appears there. So you don't need to go to the effects, type Luma tree color, drag it into your timeline, click it and adjust everything. Just one doot and you can see it. Now before I go to the blue color grade, I just want to do the lightning first because I don't know, this is what I see in the screen recording. So obviously when a lightning strikes, the surrounding area just lights up completely, and that's the brightness. Now there's no brightness settings here, but there is exposure, which is also brightness. So, and when the place lights up, it's definitely gonna light up like probably an instant. It's less than a frame in the video. So add a keyframe at the exposure tab, and at the very next frame, just bring it up. Randomly alternate the exposure in your video to simulate the lightning, because when you're recording and there's a lightning, all you see is basically flickering. So try mimicking that as realistic as possible. Do the same for any other lightning and you'll get there. Hopefully. Now onto the color grading. So add a keyframe at the point of your video where you want your video to start looking more blue, and find a part of the back of your video where you want your video to look a maximum blue, and just go to your temperature, bring it down to the point where you think it looks enough bluish. I eventually adjusted even more intensive later on because I decided it looked better. Lastly, when you're done with all of this, add a glow, specifically VR glow, because that's the only glow in Premiere Pro. Collapse all of the settings of your others so it looks more neat, and you can see your VR glow. Now I've learned quite a bit when I'm operating with the VR glow effect, and here's what I've got to tell you. The VR glow effect adds a glow to a portion of your video when it reaches a bright enough threshold. Now because I've added lightning in this video, it will look pretty intensified when I put the VR glow effect into it, because the whole part of the video reaches a bright enough level for it to glow. This is how it actually looks like. Now to fix that, you're going to want to put your VR glow behind the Luma tree color. So that means the VR glow renders first before the Luma tree color, which is where our lightning is located. It just looks too bright and intensified, and it looks like a lightning that just happened right in front of your face. And because we're going to be watching this video in a dark ass hall, it will look like that there's a lightning in the hall. So it might probably blind you. Now as I'm watching the screen recording right here, I can see that I've struggled quite a bit when I'm doing this VR glow thing. So here is what I've ended up with after all of that struggle. Alright, finally, 5 days later, and I'm only doing this. It took me 3 days to complete the editing of what I recorded previously, and also I had to find a good time when the house is not so noisy and a good time for me to record in front of the camera like this, because This right here is the upstairs living room. It's always kind of busy around here, but now it's pretty much the best time for me to make my video because my dad's having an afternoon nap and my brother's locked in his room and my mom's downstairs, which is the only distraction, but we still can make this. So anyway, we're gonna continue skimming through this tutorial. There's just 2 more parts for me to go through and we're done. This time we're gonna need to use After Effects again. You just gotta do the same thing, grab your project and plop it into that new composition icon. So what we're gonna wanna do now is make a wobble animation and make it increasingly more intense as I approach the glass door. So go to your effects and presets panel, type turbulent displays and drag that thing into your timeline and we'll pop right there. Now drag your playhead to the point where you want your wobble to start intensify and go to the amount and click that stopwatch right next to it. Same for the size and also evolution. Now click the arrow at the left of your video timeline and go to the effects and turbulent displays. Or if you don't want all that work, just click on that video timeline and press E to open up the effects and go turbulent displays. Now you can see the keyframes right here are all toggled and you can see that they appeared right at the timeline. Drag a little forward in your timeline and now start to set all of the values to a higher amount. Now in this screen recording, this is like the first time that I'm using turbulent displays, so I'm not really that familiar with how to actually use it. So here's what I learned. For the amount, you're gonna wanna set it to about 100 to 120. The size, bring it just to 100. And the evolution depends on how far you have stretched your keyframe. The higher you set the value, the faster the wobble would become. Now I can see that I'm kind of playing around with the turbulent displace values. Eventually I found the result that I was looking for, and this is how it looked like. It still needs a little bit of fine tuning though, so select off your front keyframes, go right click on it, keyframe assistant, and click ease out. Now you can see your keyframes are transformed into this arrow type of keyframe. Select any one of them or just select all of them and click this little graph icon right here. That will open the graph of how much you want to ease the keyframe in. You adjust it by this yellow line right here. For me, I'm going to want to drag it all the way to the right and that will give me the results that I'm wanting. Make sure the line is perfectly parallel to everything though. If your line is pointed slightly downwards like this, the result would be super obvious and it would not look good. Do the same for every other keyframe, drag it all to the right and you'll get there. Hopefully, after all the easing, I found the result that I wanted. Now time for more behind the scenes footage in school. Now this time in school, I wanted to use my teacher's phone, which is an iPhone XR, because I knew that my Huawei P9 would definitely not cope well in low light. So here we are walking around the school finding my teacher. It took me like 30 minutes to find her, I do not know why. What's the shutter speed? The reason why I asked that is because if the shutter speed is not synced with the light around it, then it will produce some flickering. The teacher I was looking for was, I don't think I need to say it, you guys could probably guess already. It's the amazing teacher Jeannie. She had appeared in almost every single school video I had.
1C, have you done your homework? Hi, 1C, have you done your homework? Why is it staring me?
No different in this one. You know where's teacher Jeannie? I need her iPhone. I am laughing right here. Dude, should I actually include this in my video? Probably. What? Do you know what's teacher Jenny? Now if you're wondering why I'm not getting caught or anything, like we should be in our classrooms, right? And why is my cameraman walking with a DSLR in the school hallway not getting caught? Around this week when I'm recording all of this, it's actually the week where we're supposed to prepare for awards night. We're doing all those rehearsals and all those practices. So basically there's no lessons and we can pretty much do whatever we want. But still, if I bring a DSLR to school without permission, it will definitely still get confiscated. I got permission to bring all these things. Maybe. I've literally searched everywhere to find her, even the toilet. I heard the toilet flushing. In fact, I thought she was in the toilet, that I waited like a good 10 minutes outside the girls' toilet just to see whether she comes out or not. Taking her old sweet grandfather's time in the toilet. You're actually recording? But eventually, my class teacher finally found her. Teacher Jenny, I can just take it like that. You know, when I entered the classroom, she was taking a nap and she had her phone on the table, and as soon as she saw me, she handed her phone like that to me. And I was like, what, can I actually just take it like that? Won't you need to actually see what I'm doing on it or anything?
No, don't. You need to be prepared.
You don't need to come with me.
Okay, stand, behave. Recording?
Dude, she's an absolute legend. So eventually I found her, went out to the cafeteria, plopped my bag down, took my gimbal, snatched her phone, tossed down to my gimbal, and started operating like a professional. So yeah, this was a brand new day. It was like 3 days after the initial first shoot. I started in front of the school entrance sign. The last time I ended my shot right in front of the glass door. So this time I'm gonna have to start right behind the glass door. I wanted to make it look like the person actually walked through the glass door, so I had to start where I initially ended. So first I laid the phone like less than a centimeter away from the glass door and slowly pushed out and recorded the whole place like this. Also, I did not plan for anyone to be in the shot at all. I want the shot to be completely free of people. That's why I chose in the middle during class times. But I have no idea why there's two ladies over there doing something. And also, unfortunately, my friend Brian walked through the corridor at the exact wrong time when I'm actually recording. Hey, at least none of you guys even realized that my friend Brian was there, right? Also, I did not tell anyone what my plan was, so I was just doing this, moving all around, and nobody knew what I was doing. People think I was crazy, but teacher Ginny somehow stood cool. So if you're gonna want to create this exact same video that I created for Awards Night, get as much floating shots as humanly possible. Because as I said, 3D tracking ain't perfect. Sometimes it could fail and sometimes it might not track your environment perfectly, which is why you saw some of those pictures not really staying at their original position. They're kind of like sliding around in frame. So because of this 3D tracking not being perfect, I had like 60 or 70% of my floating shots not being used because of that. So I'm just gonna show you the floating shots that I used for the Awards Night video, as well as some behind the scenes of some irrelevant stuff. Just getting as much shots as I can. Twist.
Welcome to the 8A class. Our class teacher is Teacher Sophia.
Okay, I done already. Alright, anyway, enough of the behind the scenes. Let's get to After Effects, which is what you guys are here for, right? Wait, you guys are here for the behind the scenes only? Then okay, then whatever, let's close the video. Okay, goodbye. Thanks for watching. I'm gonna see you guys in the next video. You actually believed I was gonna end the video? Come on! By the way, this phone is broken. Okay, let's get back into this. As usual, open After Effects, open a new empty project, grab your file and plop it into the timeline. I mean, the box. And, okay, fine, you know what? That's actually the raw 4K 30 FPS file that I recorded off Teacher Jeannie's phone. And yes, I recorded all those clips in 4K. And one of the lessons I've learned is that you should downscale it to 1080p and only edit it, because in 4K, it's gonna take very long, and downscaling it in After Effects is for some reason really weird. Combining the fact that it's 30 FPS instead of 25, I'm gonna have to slow it down in Premiere Pro and all those stuff. So I put it in Premiere Pro, open an empty project and plop it into the timeline, and only the audio came out. Never mind, we can always try again. Sometimes there's errors and hell, what? It's a MOV file. How is that not compatible? I'm afraid that I'm gonna have to convert it to MP4 since Premiere Pro and After Effects are such dumb softwares that can't even recognize what's a MOV file. Go to whatever browser you use and type convertcloud.com. It's the most reliable online website to convert any file to any format. The only thing you need is just your Google account and it's basically free. So I open my File Explorer tab, plot my video in and select my format, which is MP4. Pretty much everything can read an MP4 file. Start conversion, and since this is a 4K 30 FPS file, it's gonna take some time. Done. I can just go ahead and bring my cursor to the download button and boop, yeah. Alright, it's done. Drag that thing into the timeline. Boop. Just wanna go sequence settings and change it to 25 FPS. Also, because it's 4K, I'm gonna have to change it to 1080p. Now you can see it's cropped in quite a bit because it is a 4K video and it's much larger than a 1080p video. So just bring the scale down to 50%. Click on the video, CTR, F+R, and the speed tabs open up. Change it to 83. File save, file export, media. I just want to name it as DAWScope 5. Go to the file that I want to put it. For bitrate, I always set it to 20 and maximum 24. Use maximum render quality and export, and boop! My computer is so fast, it exports that in seconds. Once it's done, close the shit out of Premiere Pro, go to After Effects, go open your folder, find your video and put it in that top left box, and boom! Drag it into the new composition icon, and boom! Finally! Well, let's get back to business. First, drag your playhead to the part of the video where you want to trim, and press Ctrl D. Your video gets split and you can delete the part where you don't want. Do the same for the end. Now this footage had already came out looking pretty smooth because it was shot on a gimbal. Plus the iPhone XR comes with OIS, combining with some software stabilization, so any imperfection had already been removed. So we can immediately click on the video and press track camera. Once that is done, you can see all the tracking points in your shot. When you're done looking at your tracked up goodness, go ahead and click the create camera button. The camera would appear right on top of your clip. I usually want to bring it below my clip because there's more space for me to work on the top. Once you're done, drag whatever photo you want to put into your timeline. Now this is a raw format picture, so this is why this tab right here opens up. If you have a JPEG file, it'll just immediately plop into your timeline, but this is a raw picture, so I get to control the exposures and everything first. Once you're done, you can click OK and it just appears there. Bring the scale all the way down to like a fifth of the size of the video, or even lower. After that, you can take the 3D and motion blur boxes. Immediately after you click the 3D, you can see that your video had positioned itself inside your video. If you play back the video, you can see that it has stayed right there. So right now this clip is in the middle of the transition between all of the other transitions. So I'm gonna want to position this specific photo literally right in front of the camera. Turn off the motion blur temporarily to view your pictures better. Click your photo and press R to open the rotation settings, and you can rotate your pictures too. I want to align my picture directly in front of the camera so the transition will look more seamless. Now you can see that your image had exceeded the duration of your video, and this is what shows up after that. So you can go ahead and split the photo and delete the back part of it. Once you're done, you can turn the motion blur back on and it'll look better. When you're done with your first photo, you can go ahead and add your second photo and so on. Add as many photos as you want to fill up your frame. Give each of these pictures a unique position and orientation, and also position your last photo to fill in the entire frame, and this is what you'll end up with, hopefully. Now as you can see in this very last frame, it almost fills up the entire shot. Duplicate this picture and bring it all the way to the front. Position it in the timeline to appear right after this frame. Usually the duration of the photo that I want to present will be 2.5 times the length of the transition clip. Position it to fill the entire frame. Now once you're done positioning it, you can either leave it as it is or click the stopwatch button and add a keyframe. Go to the end of the photo and drag the position downwards. So there will be a nice downward motion revealing the whole image since this is a portrait image. If the motion looks too slow, just drag the keyframe closer to each other. And this is what you'll end up with, hopefully. Now once you're done viewing at your tracked up goodness, we can go ahead and move on to the next phase. Go ahead and check whether your renderer is at classic 3D or not. Hit OK and go down to your 3D tracker camera, click the arrow to expand it and go to camera options. Now you can see depth of field, make sure to turn it on. Now what depth of field does, you can see, okay, bring your playhead all the way to the beginning of the video and you can see that your photo is slightly blurred out. Now if you turn off depth of field, you can see it's a lot clearer. Now that doesn't mean that depth of field blurs your image out. It does something much nicer and you should really try to appreciate this. Just turn depth of field on and bring your aperture much higher. The higher you bring it, the more blurry it looks, but you can see that this blur isn't really the blur that you're used to. You can see it creates weird patterns. It will look much better after this. Now bring your aperture all the way high and bring your focus distance down, you can see it becomes much clearer, bringing it to the point where you can start to see details. Once it looks pretty clear, click the stopwatch icon right beside focus distance and move about 3 frames front. You can see it looks blurry again. Bring the focus distance value a bit higher until you see it looks clear. Do it up to like 5 or 10 repetitions. You can see this amazing effect once you have zoomed all the way out. You can see anything that's really close to you gets blurred out, and anything too far away also gets blurred out. Only things that are in between. So yeah, at some point when the image that used to be right up to your face gets to a reasonable distance, just stop and let the video continue until you see the second photo that you're gonna zoom into. So yeah, currently you can see the image that we're about to zoom into is currently blurred out. So now click that button between those 2 arrows to create a keyframe. Move like say 3 or 4 frames ahead and start adjusting the focus distance to focus on that specific image. Do the same for every 3 or 4 frames until you reach the end. Once you're done with everything, adjust your aperture to 150 or anything that looks suitable. The lower the number is, the less intense the depth of field will be. After that, set your iris shape to pentagon or anything more below, and you'll see that the bokeh effect looks much more realistic now. To make it even better, go to your iris roundness and set it to 100%. The reason why we want to leave it as fast rectangle just now is to render faster. You can see right here when it's focusing to this image right here, the transition looks a bit too instant. Like it starts off blurry and then slightly less blurry, and after that it's an instant clear. So what you can do is right click on that keyframe assistant, and ease in. Now it looks smoother, it looks a lot better. Also at this part of the video you can see that when it's focusing towards that image, the rest of those images looks a bit too blurred out. So what you can do is click on the aperture stopwatch and start lowering it down to somewhere like 100 pixels or something. When you're done, you can collapse the 3D tracker settings, and right now the only thing to blur out is the background, but the background is a separate layer from the rest. So what you can do is blur the background specifically with another effect. Add the effects and presets, type camera lens blur and drop it down to your background. Now why camera lens blur specifically? This blurring effect realistically produces a blur that is actually captured in camera. Okay, here's an example. Here I have a picture taken at my room window. And the most commonly used blur is the Gaussian blur. Now the Gaussian blur totally removes detail from your image, but with the camera lens blur it produces little spots of highlights according to the shape of your iris. So yeah, if I take the original photo and put a Gaussian blur on it, it looks pretty expectable. But here's the same picture, but I've completely manually blurred out with my own camera. I use manual focus and just twist it like this to blur it completely, and you can see it somehow looks really nice. My fingers totally isolated, but with Gaussian blur it does not produce this effect. You can see little circles produced by the highlights in the background, and it looks really nice. So once you have applied the effect, you can see it appears right in this box. Always. The blur radius is the amount of blur that's being applied in your video. Now for the iris shape, I would always want to put a pentagon and put the roundness at 100, which still gives you kind of a circle shape. I just think that having the shape that has more sides takes more time to process. That's just my thinking. Everything else shall remain the same. Now bring your playhead all the way back to the beginning, open up your effects panel, and go to camera lens blur. As always, click the stopwatch icon to enable animation and create a keyframe. I usually set it like 30, scroll forward and put it at 0. Adjust the amount of blur to your desire. A heavy rain going on outside. Now pretty commonly when you're applying any sort of blur at all, the edge of your video will darken up. The more intense the blur is, the more noticeable it is. So to fix that, check the repeat edge pixels and you can see the problem instantly disappears. So eventually we end up here. Hopefully you can get it. Time for the compositing effects. Now select every single element you have in this composition. Right click on one of them and press pre-compose. Of course, move all attributes in the new composition and name it whatever you want. This shot right here contains all the tracking data, so I'm just gonna name it tracking data. And you can see everything is in that tracking data. Double click on it, you see everything you have put in it. If you wanna adjust any position of the pictures, you can just do it here. Anyway, going back to our tracking data stuff, right now I'm gonna have to add my previous clip into this, but it doesn't seem to have enough space. So what you can do is go to the composition settings, and you can see the duration right here. Right now it's just 13 seconds. We would want to adjust it to like 20 seconds. Just press OK and you'll see that your timeline is much wider. So go ahead and find your previous clip that I've rendered, pop into your timeline. Now this was my previous clip. You can see I've ended right there. I wanted to splice both clips together. So just bring the clip that I have worked on right there. You can see the same picture exiting. So to make these two clips splice well, we're gonna have to do our color grade, our glow, and our turbulent displays, which is the wobble. So select your clip. First, find Lumetri, drag Lumetri color to your effects controls. Go basic correction, and temperature is the most obvious thing to start changing. The temperature I've set always to -123. Exposure is -1, contrast max, highlights max, shadows is about 80 to 85. And now they slice together pretty well. The color grading matches now. Now the next thing that we have to put, you might think it's a glow, but it's actually the turbulent displace, because if you put the glow first, the turbulent displace will also wobble the glow. So animate the turbulent displace first before the glow. So yeah, again, go set all your keyframes, set your evolution, easing and all those stuff. I don't want to make this video too long because it will definitely be longer than 30 minutes, which is why I'm gonna have to stop talking right now. So after the turbulent displace is the glow, and I have to animate the Lumetri and glow together to fade in and out between the transitions, and you're basically done. Just pull the blue bar all the way down to the part where you want your clip to end. Go to File, Save of course, go to Composition, add to render queue. Basically the only thing you need to change is the output to. Find the folder that you want the video to export to and type the name, save and render. Finally, once again, 4 days later, and I'm back. How long is it? 41 minutes. Alright, this is the last part, so we're almost there. Please don't click away. And to thank y'all with your patience, here are more behind the scenes video. School has ended, look at the time. And by the way, I've forgotten to mention who's my behind the scenes filmer. It's actually Hongsheng, here's his Instagram. He's freaking amazing. A way better filmer than Caleb, alright? Just... Alright, Caleb, hope you don't get offended. Caleb has absolutely no experience with DSLRs, so it's completely fine. Some people have shaky hands too, so the class is looking amazing now, and this was what I was trying to film. I needed all of these empty space, so yeah, we probably... Who's that? That's Hector again, boys. Alright, we better start filming before a teacher or some principal comes in. I mean, we have permission, so why worry? First, we gotta open the door. So here I started filming those floating shots again, just in case we need to use it, but we never did. The shots that I gathered were not compatible. They were just too fast moving, too much motion blur, and couldn't really get tracked. So yeah, that was basically a waste of time. But no worries, we got what we need. This is my broken ass Huawei P9, and yeah, you can't, the screen is unresponsive now, so I'm using a mouse. And also, a friend of ours came to visit. Why are you coming to class anyway? Wait, stop distracting me. Apparently he was really bored and he had nothing to do, so he decided to come see what I was doing. You come in? Whoa. Alright, I'm gonna set this phone like somewhere right here, like some phones lying on the table. I'm gonna open the same picture on my phone. So if you do not know what's this is actually tracking points on my phone for After Effects to analyze, so it can actually track the screens that I will put on it. I'm gonna put on max brightness so it's more visible. Dang it, my foot was captured. I kept failing my shot with my gimbal. Like sometimes I got my foot captured in the video, and most of the time the shots were not even smooth at all, so I just decided to remove the gimbal and shot it handheld. You know what? I'm gonna go handheld with this. This was the hardest clip to record. Alright, back to the editing studio. Alright, I thought that was the last clip, but actually I still have one more. I'm a dumbass. And here I was, going through one of the most frustrating times of my filmmaking career ever. I mean, it's not really a career, but I think this shot was the hardest one to ever get compared to the rest. Time to go back to the editing room. Oh my goodness, one scene from the past, why do you have to do that? Oh, whatever, let's just continue what we were discussing about. So yeah, now going back to After Effects, which is what you guys are here for, I know. Drop your clip into that top left box again, create a new composition. Now because this part is somewhat similar, I'm just gonna skim through the things that I've already mentioned before. Now I did not downscale this 4K footage into 1080p because I will need the resolution in After Effects. Just look at those juicy details you can see in that shot. So yeah, sure, first thing, track your camera. This is a 4K video, so it's gonna take a lot more time. Once the tracking is done, just take a moment to appreciate all those tracking points in your shot. That's a bit too bunched out, so that's because I increased the track point size to 4000%. Alright, let's go further and see. Look at that. This is why those 4 white dots help. You can see that After Effects effectively took those points for tracking. So you go create your camera, add 3D and motion blur to your image, position it to line up your shot, drag in your second photo, but it can be a video if you want. Position that thing onto the phone. If you have positioned the media that you want it to be fixed on the screen that you want, but when you play in the video it doesn't really seem to stay there, change the scale of it more. If the media you've added appears to be moving too fast, just increase the scale and position it further. Vice versa, if it's too slow, decrease the scale and put it nearer. When I finally kinda found the sweet spot, I just decided to put some keyframes in the position and position it according to when it's out of the frame. Once you're done with that phone video thing, you can go ahead and add all of your other photos. And I decided to line them up to be facing towards the TV in our classroom because that's the main focus after that. After adding all of the photos, select everything, pre-compose it, add all of your final compositing effects like Lumetri Color, Turbulent, and VR Glow, and finally you will be done. Hopefully. Splice it together in Premiere Pro and it would look amazing. When I've spliced it in Premiere Pro, I just started editing the montage, and I don't think I need to go through how I made the montage because I think most of you guys are just here to know how I actually put those floating pictures. After editing the montage, everything I edit onwards is already mentioned. It's not that complicated, honestly. It's just really time consuming because you have to position all your pictures according to how you want. So after nearly a whole month of work, I can finally present you guys my Awards Night Flashback 2019 video. But before I show you guys the video, please, as I said quite previously ago about frame rates, because my flashback video is in 25 FPS and this video is in 30 FPS, it would not look good as I explained earlier, which is why I highly recommend you guys to go down into the description below and click on the link which says if you want to see the flashback video, click here, it's a blue link. I will still include the flashback video in this video of course, but it's just not worth watching. The frame rates just look too jittery, and just click the link in the description below. It's not that hard, is it? Alright. Let's roll it. So yeah, the last part of the video, I decided not to add any effects or anything. Initially, I wanted to add some 3D text being like, thanks for watching or whatever, but I couldn't do it because if you look into my screen recordings, you can see that I've been editing my video till midnight. Surpassed midnight, I've edited it till 2 a.m. in the morning, and after rendering and all those stuff, it reached 3 a.m. and I'm just too tired. I knew this flashback video would take really long to make, which is why I started recording like literally, as I said, the day after exam was over. Some more, I wasn't told when the video must be completed until like the last 3 days before awards night. After receiving a really bad scolding from the teachers, I went mad with the editing. So because of that, I'm a bit anxious to participate making the next year's awards night video because I do not know how that end up. I don't want to edit till 3 a.m. I don't want to get scolding from teachers. So because of that, if you guys really want me to make next year's awards night, please show some love, subscribe, like, and if I receive enough support, I will consider on next year's awards night video, and it'll definitely look better than this. So yeah, those were the last things I wanted to say before I leave. Whether next year's awards night video is gonna be lit or not, it's up to you guys. Show some love and I'll do it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Loads of good content are coming out. Goodbye!